I found out the house was never really his. On the morning he arrived with a locksmith and a smile that didn't belong on a man's face. Drew Kellan stood at the end of my driveway like he'd rehearsed the scene. A folder of papers in one hand, his phone in the other, chin lifted so the neighbors could see he was the one in control. The locksmith waited beside a van, eyes down, already fishing keys from his pocket as if my front door was just another job site. "Morgan," Drew called, voice light. "Let's not do this the hard way." Hard way. He said it like a warning, like the hard way was something he could choose for me. I stepped onto the porch barefoot, the wood cold under my feet. My hands were steady, only because I refused to let them shake in front of him. "What is that?" I asked, pointing to the papers. He lifted the top sheet and tapped the seal. "Court order. You're out today. I'm taking possession." My stomach dropped so fast it felt like gravity doubled. 3 weeks earlier, our divorce had been finalized. Drew walked out of that courtroom, wearing the same smug confidence he used to wear to dinner parties, the kind that made strangers believe he was successful, even when our bank account said otherwise. He told everyone the same story. The house was his. He bought it. He paid it. I was just the passenger in his life. And because the deed, on paper, looked like it backed him up, people nodded like it was obvious. But Lily was upstairs getting ready for school, humming under her breath like she was trying to pretend normal still existed. She was 14, tall and all elbows, and she had learned to read tension the way other kids read captions. I took the order from Drew's hand and scanned it, eyes moving too fast. It looked real. It looked terrifying. It listed our address. It used words like exclusive possession and immediate compliance. Then I noticed something that made my pulse spike. The case number wasn't ours. I looked up. Drew's smile widened, like he could taste my doubt. "See?" he said. "Recorded. Clean. Done." "You filed in another court," I said quietly. His eyebrows lifted. "I filed where I needed to. Stop acting like you're special." That was Drew's favorite trick. Act like rules were optional if they slowed him down. Across the street, Mrs. Alvarez stepped onto her porch, hand near her mouth. She'd watched me walk Lily to the bus for years. She'd watched Drew's car disappear months ago. Her eyes said, "Is this really happening?" Drew loved an audience. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "You can pack whatever you want. I'll give you until noon." Noon. Like losing a home was an appointment. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I stepped back inside the doorway, just far enough to grab my phone and dial Simone Grant, my attorney. She answered on the first ring. "Morgan?" "He's here," I whispered. "Locksmith. Papers. He says I'm out today." "Read me the docket number," Simone said. I read it. There was a beat of silence, the kind that means she's already angry but choosing precision. "That's not your divorce docket," she said. "He filed a landlord-tenant writ, claiming you're a holdover tenant." "A tenant," I breathed, heat rushing into my face. "In my own house?" "He's using that forged deed," Simone said. "Do not let that locksmith touch anything. Call the police non-emergency line. Tell them it's an illegal lockout. Then text me photos of everything." Outside, Drew knocked once, sharp. "Morgan, let's go." I took the photos with trembling fingers. Then I opened the door again, not to invite him in, but to make sure my voice carried. "I'm calling the police," I said. His smile cracked. "Don't be stupid." "I'm not," I said. "You are." For a second, the mask slipped. The eyes that used to look charming turned flat and cold. Then he turned back toward the street. lifting his hands like he was the reasonable one. Fine. Call them. While we waited, my mind flashed back to the first moment I knew Drew was willing to write reality with ink. It came in a plain envelope from the county recorder's office, a courtesy notice, the kind most people toss without reading. Inside was a recorded quitclaim deed. My name was on it. My signature was on it. A notary stamp declared I had appeared in person on a Tuesday afternoon and acknowledged signing away my interest. Only that Tuesday afternoon, I was at Lily's school for parent-teacher conferences. I had a time-stamped photo of Lily smiling beside a science fair poster. I had receipts. I had witnesses. I called Drew that night, voice shaking. "Did you file a deed with my signature?" He sighed like I was annoying. "It was paperwork, Morgan. Relax. That's forgery." "Stop using words you don't understand," he snapped. "You were always emotional about money." That's when I started saving everything. Bank statements, closing documents, emails, screenshots. Not because I was plotting divorce, but because I could feel the floor tilting under my life, and I needed something solid to hold. Simone was the first person who looked at those documents and said calmly, "He's not just lying. He's committing fraud." And then she said something that changed the way I breathed. "You told me the down payment came from your grandmother's inheritance," she said. "If we can trace it, the house may never have been marital the way he claims." Inheritance, separate property, tracing. Words that sounded like law school, but felt like rescue. The police cruiser arrived with a soft crunch of tires on gravel. The officer stepped out, neutral face, one hand resting on his belt. Drew walked forward immediately, launching into his story like he'd practiced. "Officer, I have a court order," he said, waving the paper. "She's refusing to leave. I need to change the locks." The officer looked at the paper, then looked at me. "Ma'am, do you live here?" "Yes," I said. "There's an active family court order, maintaining status quo. He's under an injunction not to change locks. This writ was obtained by deception." The officer glanced back at Drew. "Did you tell the court about the ongoing family case?" Drew's jaw tightened. "It's irrelevant." "It's relevant if you left out material facts," the officer said. Then he handed the paper back. "I'm not enforcing this today. This is a civil dispute, but I will document an attempted lockout. If you continue, you could be cited." Drew's face reddened, fury bubbling up behind his eyes. "So you're just going to let her squat?" The officer's voice sharpened. "Step off the porch." Drew backed away, glaring at me like I'd stolen something he already owned in his mind. The locksmith avoided everyone's eyes and climbed back into his van. As Drew walked to his car, he leaned close enough that only I could hear. "You're still going to lose," he murmured. "This house is mine." He drove away, tires spitting gravel. Mrs. Alvarez crossed the street after the cruiser left. "Honey," she said softly, touching my shoulder. "Are you okay?" I swallowed. I don't know yet, but I knew one thing. If Drew was bold enough to try it in daylight, he'd try something worse in the dark. Simone filed an emergency motion that afternoon. Sanctions, contempt, vacating the landlord-tenant, writ for fraud. The family court judge set a hearing within 48 hours. Drew arrived to that hearing with his lawyer, Collins, wearing a suit and a smile that tried to look innocent. He told the judge he'd been confused. He claimed he thought the injunction only applied to selling, not possession. The judge's eyes were tired, but her voice was sharp. "Mr. Kellan, you attempted to circumvent this court by filing in another forum. That is not confusion. That is strategy." Simone stood. Your Honor, we also have evidence the deed Mr. Kellan relies on is forged. Collins rose, already objecting. Your Honor. Simone held up a binder. We subpoenaed the notary's journal. The entry for that date does not list Ms. Hale. It lists a male, appearing alone, signing on behalf of a spouse. The courtroom went quiet in that special way it does when people realize a lie might be bigger than the marriage itself. Simone added, we also obtained security footage from the UPS store where the notarization occurred. It shows Mr. Kellan entering alone at 2:14 p.m. Drew's smile died. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Kellan, she said slowly, did you appear before a notary pretending to be your wife? Drew opened his mouth, closed it. Collins tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. I am referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation, she said. And I am issuing a temporary protective order regarding contact. Mr. Kellan, any further harassment or attempts to change possession will result in contempt. In the hallway, Drew lunged toward me until the bailiff stepped between us. His voice was a hiss. You're ruining me. I met his eyes. You did this, I said. Not me. He laughed, sharp and bitter. You think the DA cares? Even if they do, I still get half. It's marital property. Simone's hand rested on my elbow like a steady pulse. Not necessarily, she said, soft enough to be private. We traced the down payment. Drew's eyes flicked to her. That's not how it works. It can be, Simone said, and there's more. The legal description on your quitclaim deed doesn't even match this property. His face tightened. That's a typo. It's recorded, Simone replied. Typos get corrected. Fraud gets prosecuted. Drew stormed off, but his shoulders were stiff in a way that told me he finally felt the ground moving under him. After that contempt hearing, Drew didn't calm down. He reorganized his cruelty. He started with charm, because charm was always his first weapon. He called mutual friends and spoke in that wounded, reasonable tone that made people lean toward sympathy. He told them I was spiraling, that I was punishing him, that Lily was being turned against her father. People I had hosted for barbecues suddenly texted me, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're thinking clearly?" And each message felt like a small theft, not of property, but of credibility. Then he moved to pressure. His mother, Denise, showed up at Lily's bus stop one morning, arms crossed, smiling too tightly. Lily texted me from the sidewalk, "Mom, Grandma's here and she's saying I should come live with Dad because you're making him suffer." I drove there so fast my hands went numb on the wheel. Denise acted surprised to see me. "I'm just concerned," she said sweetly. "He loves his daughter. He's heartbroken." "He's heartbroken?" I repeated, breath sharp. "He forged my name." Denise blinked as if I'd said something rude at church. Drew wouldn't do that. That was the other way Drew rewrote reality. He surrounded himself with people who preferred the comfortable lie. When Denise left, Lily climbed into my car, jaw tight. "I don't like when they talk about you like you're crazy," she whispered. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're not responsible for their story," I said, "just for your own truth." But I could see how it affected her. She started sleeping with her bedroom door locked. She asked if we had cameras. She flinched every time a car slowed near the house. Sometimes I would catch her staring at the front window, like she was waiting for the locksmith to come back. So I installed cameras. Front door, driveway, backyard. I learned the language of notifications. Motion detected. Person detected. and I hated that my nervous system began to live on those alerts. Drew also found new ways to poke at the house itself, like he couldn't accept he was losing access to the one thing he thought proved he was the winner. One afternoon, the water shut off without warning. I called the utility company, heart racing. The representative sounded uncomfortable. "Ma'am," she said, "someone called claiming to be an authorized account holder and requested disconnection." "Who?" I asked, already knowing. She couldn't say the name, but she didn't have to. I filed the incident with Simone, who filed it with the court, who added it to the record as harassment. Drew got a warning. Then he tried again with the electricity, then the trash service. Each time I documented. Each time he denied. It was exhausting. And that was the point. Drew wanted me tired enough to sign anything that made him go away. Simone warned me about that. "People like him don't fight to win," she said. "They fight to wear you down until you surrender." So I built routines to keep myself steady. I made lists. I kept a binder by the kitchen table with tabs: court, bank, school, cameras, threats. I kept a note on the fridge for Lily that said, "If anything feels weird, call me, no matter what." The financial pressure came next. A letter arrived from the bank about the HELOC. Polite language masking threat. Past due, default, possible acceleration. My hands shook as I read it because my name was on the account, even though I hadn't opened it. Simone called the bank's fraud department with me on speaker. "This account was obtained through a forged signature," she said. "You have been put on notice. Continuing collection against my client will be documented." The fraud agent asked questions, dates, addresses, identification. Simone answered with the patience of someone who knows that systems only move when you feed them exactly what they require. After the call, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the letter until Lily came downstairs. She saw my face and froze. "Mom, are we going to lose the house?" she asked. The fear in her voice made something in my chest ache open. "No," I said firmly, pulling her into a hug. "We're not. I won't let that happen." She pressed her face into my shoulder. "Dad keeps saying you're going to have to move," she whispered. "He said he already picked a house for us to live in with him." My stomach clenched. "He shouldn't be saying that to you." She pulled back, eyes bright. "He says if you loved me, you'd stop fighting." I held her face gently between my hands. "Listen to me," I said. "Love doesn't demand you hand over your safety. Love doesn't blackmail. He is trying to control you with fear. That's not your job to fix." Lily nodded, small and shaky. And I realized my fight wasn't only in court. It was also in the daily work of teaching my child what manipulation looks like and how to refuse it. Depositions began in early summer. That meant sitting in conference rooms with a court reporter while lawyers asked questions that felt like knives made of paper. Drew's deposition was first. Simone let me listen from another room. He started confident, answering with jokes. "I'm a straightforward guy," he said, chuckling, like honesty was a brand. He insisted he paid the mortgage. He insisted I didn't understand finances. He insisted the deed was a clerical correction. Then Simone put the notary journal in front of him. "Do you recognize this entry?" she asked. Drew leaned forward. "Looks like a log." "And does it contain Ms. Hale's name?" Simone asked. Drew hesitated. "I mean, not everything is written perfectly." Simone's voice stayed even. "Does it contain your name?" Another pause. "No." Simone slid the security photo across the table, a still frame from the UPS store camera. Drew entering alone. Is that you? She asked. Drew's chair creaked as he shifted. That could be anyone. Simone didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Mr. Kellan, you are under oath. Is that you? The silence stretched. Finally, Drew said, yes. Simone let it sit. Then she asked softly, so if you were there alone, who was the woman who supposedly signed as Miss Hale? Drew's voice sharpened. I don't remember. Simone nodded, like she expected that. You don't remember, or you can't answer without admitting a crime. Drew slammed a hand on the table. This is harassment. Simone looked at him calmly. This is evidence. After the deposition, Simone called me into her office. He's cornered, she said. Cornered men do unpredictable things. Keep the protective order close. Keep your cameras on. And keep Lily close. That warning proved true within days. One evening, as Lily and I drove home from the grocery store, we noticed a truck trailing us. Not close enough to be obvious, but close enough to feel intentional. My hands tightened on the wheel. Lily glanced back. Is that Dad? She whispered. I took a breath and drove past our street, circling the block instead. The truck followed. My pulse hammered. I headed toward the police station instead of home. The truck peeled off at the last second. Lily's voice shook. He's following us. I don't know, I said, keeping my tone steady because she needed steady. But we're going to be careful. That night, I slept with my phone on my chest and the camera app open, the porch light flooding the driveway in bright white. I hated living like that, but I refused to live helpless. Simone used every incident, every letter, every text, every false claim, not just as proof of Drew's character, but as a pattern of coercion, deception, and control. And the judge, slowly, started treating Drew not as a bitter ex, but as a risk. The weeks that followed were a storm of escalation, exactly what Simone predicted. Every time Drew felt control slipping, he tried to claw it back with noise. He sent Lily texts calling me a thief. He tried to cancel utilities. He mailed a notice of sale to our HOA, telling them the property would be listed soon. Mrs. Alvarez handed it to me with shaking hands, furious on my behalf. At 3 a.m. one night, my phone buzzed with voicemail after voicemail. Drew's voice was slurred with anger. You think you can take my house? He hissed. You think you can embarrass me? I'll make you pay. Simone filed for a stronger protective order the next morning. The judge granted it, ordering all communication through a parenting app. Then Drew showed up at my job anyway, waiting in the lobby like he belonged there. He stepped into my path as I walked in, heart hammering. Sign an amendment, he said, low. Give me the house. I'll take the debt. I'll make this go away. You opened the HELOC, I said. He shrugged. We both benefited. No, I said. You did. His smile turned sharp. Do you want Lily dragged through subpoenas? Through court? Be reasonable? I stared at him. You don't get to threaten me into calling it reasonable. Security escorted him out, and as he walked away, he tossed one sentence over his shoulder, a sentence that stuck to my ribs like a thorn. You don't even know whose house that is. That afternoon, Simone sat across from me, eyes narrowed. Tell me about your grandmother again, she said. My Nana, I replied. She raised me. She left me money. She had a living trust. Simone tapped the chain of title on her screen. There's a gap. When you bought the house, the seller conveyed to both of you. Then a week later, a corrective deed changed vesting to Drew alone. That corrective deed references an exhibit that's missing. And the title file includes a rider mentioning Hale Family Trust as a source of funds. My palms went cold. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Simone said carefully, that your Nana may have structured that money with conditions, maybe even intended the property to be held in trust. If so, Drew's ownership might be an illusion. That night, I opened the old filing cabinet in my closet, the one I avoided because grief still lived in its drawers. I pulled out the folder labeled Nana. Inside was a thick packet titled Hale Family Trust. My hands shook as I flipped pages until I found a section called Real Property Acquisitions. An attached memorandum, dated 2 months before our closing, stated the trustee was authorizing a distribution for the purchase of a residence for me, to be held in trust for my benefit in my issue, with a clause restricting transfer to any spouse. Restricting transfer to any spouse. I sat on the floor, back against the closet wall, and I cried for the first time in months. Not because I was broken, but because I suddenly understood Nana had been protecting me even after she was gone. The next morning, Simone read the clause and let out a breath that sounded like relief. "Oh," she said softly, "Drew is going to hate this." "So what does it mean?" I whispered. "It means," Simone said, tapping the page, "the intent was for the property to be protected from a spouse. If the money came from the trust, and the closing file shows that intent, we can seek reformation of title. We can argue constructive trust. We can show Drew was never supposed to hold what he claims." The next big hearing landed in late spring. By then, Drew's arrogance had turned into desperation. He kept filing motions, trying to force a sale, trying to paint me as unstable, trying to drown me in paperwork. Simone matched him, calmly, precisely, like a surgeon. When he demanded the house be listed, she demanded full disclosure of the HELOC and where the money went. When he claimed he was the primary payer, she produced bank records showing the down payment was wired from the trust and that most mortgage payments came from my account. When he insisted I was alienating Lily, she produced the texts where he told our daughter, "If you stay with your mom, don't expect me to pay for anything." The judge began to see him clearly, and then discovery uncovered the money trail that made everything uglier. The HELOC had been drawn to the limit, $75,000. The funds were wired to Kellan Ventures, LLC, then transferred in chunks to accounts under his sister Paige's name, then spent on a truck, a watch, and consulting that looked like nothing but a disguise. Simone slid the bank records toward me. "He was bleeding you," she said quietly, "and he planned to leave you with the wound." By midsummer, we reached trial. 3 days. 3 days where the story Drew had told for years would either become official or collapse under its own weight. Day 1 was the purchase. Nana, the trust distribution, the closing. I testified about the inheritance, about the wire transfer, about Drew insisting on control and telling me, "Trust me." Drew's lawyer tried to paint me as bitter. "You're angry," he said. "Yes," I replied. "I'm angry someone forged my name." Day 2 was the forgery. The notary's journal, the footage, the handwriting expert, the bank's HELOC representative, who testified that the online application's IP address traced back to Drew's office. Drew sat rigid, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the table like staring at wood, could change what was true. Day 3 was the moment everything snapped into place. The twist that turned Drew's ownership into something even worse than a lie. Simone called the former escrow officer from our closing. She took the stand, nervous. Simone asked, Did your office process any document changing vesting to Mr. Kellan's sole and separate property? No, the witness said. Did Mr. Kellan ever provide authority to record a corrective deed after closing? No, she repeated, louder now. Simone placed the trust memorandum on the stand. When the Hale family trust wired funds, what was the intent communicated to your office? The escrow officer swallowed, that the property was to be held to reflect trust intent, with Morgan Hale as beneficiary, and restrictions against transferring to a spouse. I felt the air in the room change, because it meant Drew's entire foundation was built on a document he recorded himself outside the closing process, with a notary who didn't verify identity to create an illusion of sole ownership. Drew sprang up. I was fixing an error. The judge's voice cracked like ice. Sit down. Simone's tone stayed calm. Your Honor, we have enough to show Mr. Kellan altered the public record to manufacture ownership, then used that manufactured record to obtain a HELOC and to attempt an eviction. The judge looked at Drew for a long, heavy moment. Then she began to read her findings into the record, slowly, like she wanted every word to land. The evidence establishes that the down payment originated from the Hale family trust, intended to benefit Ms. Hale and her child, she said. The court finds Mr. Kellan's actions constitute fraud in the procurement of title records and fraud upon this court. My fingers went numb. The court orders that the property is awarded to Ms. Hale as her separate interest, she continued, and title shall be reformed to reflect trust intent. Mr. Kellan is divested of any claim. Divested. Any claim. Drew's face went slack, like someone cut the strings holding him upright. And further, the judge said, Mr. Kellan is solely responsible for the HELOC debt incurred through fraudulent means. Mrs. Hale is awarded attorney's fees and costs. This matter is referred to the district attorney for criminal review. Drew made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. You can't. The gavel hit. We are done. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just sat there, stunned, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally remembered how to exhale. Simone squeezed my hand. It's on the record, she whispered. He can't rewrite that. Outside the courtroom after the ruling, my legs finally gave a little, like my body had been holding itself upright on pure adrenaline. I leaned against the wall, eyes closed, hearing muffled voices, the shuffle of files, the distant clang of an elevator door. Drew walked past us with his fists clenched, face tight, breathing hard through his nose like a bull that didn't understand why the gate wouldn't open. Collins wasn't beside him anymore. His lawyer had already started stepping away, leaving Drew with nothing but his own anger and the consequences it had finally attracted. He stopped 10 feet away and turned back, voice low. You think you're safe now? Simone didn't flinch. This court order is enforceable, she said. Any violation will be immediate contempt. Drew's eyes slid to me. For a split second I saw something fragile there. Not remorse, not love, just fear. The kind that comes when a person realizes their favorite weapon no longer works. Then the fear turned into hate. He spat one last sentence, like a curse. Enjoy it while it lasts. He walked away, shoulders rigid, and I realized that was the first time I'd ever seen him leave without feeling like he'd won the room. Lily was waiting with my sister in the hallway because I didn't want her inside the trial. When she saw me, she stood fast, searching my face. I knelt, took her hands, and said the words she needed most. We're staying. Her breath hitched. Then she nodded once, hard, like she was choosing to believe me with her whole body. For the first time, the hallway felt like home. That's when the power reversal started. Not with fireworks, but with consequences stacking one after another, the way dominoes fall when you finally touch the first one. The bank froze the HELOC, flagged fraud, and closed Drew's accounts. His credit cards started declining. The loan officer who once laughed at his jokes stopped returning his calls. The district attorney's subpoenas went out. Drew's employer received one tied to his office in IP address. He was placed on leave, then quietly terminated when the firm decided reputational risk wasn't worth his charm. Paige stopped answering him. She didn't want her name on a charging document. Drew tried to appeal the ruling. The appellate court denied his emergency stay. His lawyer withdrew. Drew began filing on his own. Messy, angry motions that the court rejected. The new deed was recorded. My name, the trust, and Lily's protected interest were reflected the way Nana intended. The title company issued a correction. The mortgage was refinanced into my name. It was paperwork, but it felt like reclaiming oxygen. One Saturday morning, Lily and I were making pancakes when a sheriff's vehicle rolled up, and my heart still jumped, because fear is stubborn. But the deputy didn't walk to my door. He walked to Drew's car parked across the street. Drew was standing there, shoulders tight, as if he'd been waiting for the world to punish him, and still couldn't accept it was coming. The deputy handed him papers. Drew snatched them, threw them to the ground. The deputy didn't flinch. He pointed, firm. Drew picked them up, jaw trembling, and got back in his car. Lily stared through the window, eyes wide. "Mom, what's happening?" I swallowed. "He's being served," I said softly. She was quiet for a long moment, then whispered, "I hated when he called it his house." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because it felt like you didn't exist," she said. "Like we were just guests." My throat tightened. "We're not guests," I said. "We never were." A week later, Simone called me. "Charges were filed," she said. My breath caught. "Forgery?" "Forgery," she confirmed. "And attempted theft. There may be more." I sank onto my couch, phone pressed to my ear, feeling both relief and grief. Because part of me still mourned the version of Drew I thought I married, the version who promised we were a team. But another part of me, the part Nana raised, understood something clean and final. A man who can forge your name can forge your reality, and the only way to survive someone like that is to make the truth louder than their story. When the civil suit for slander of title finally reached mediation, Drew sat across from me in a conference room, no longer smug. His suit was rumpled. His hands shook when he reached for water. "You could end this," he muttered. "You could have ended it the day you chose honesty," I said. His mouth twisted. "Honesty doesn't get you what you deserve." I leaned forward slightly. "I don't think I deserve things that belong to other people." He stared at me like he'd never understood that sentence before. He signed the settlement. He released all claims. He agreed to pay damages and attorney fees. He agreed the recorded documents were false. He didn't apologize. He couldn't. Apology requires seeing someone else as real. As we left, his voice stopped me in the hallway. "You think you won," he said, bitter. I turned. "I didn't win," I replied. "I survived." His eyes narrowed. "This house ruined me." "No," I said quietly. "You ruined you. The house was never really yours." He flinched, then walked away, shoulders hunched, finally small. That evening, Lily and I drove to Nana's grave with daisies, her favorite. The sun was low and warm, turning the grass gold. I knelt beside the stone and traced her name. "Thank you," I whispered. Lily crouched beside me. "She helped us," she said. "Yes," I said. "She did." On the drive home, Lily asked, "Do you miss him?" I thought about the early days, the laughter, the dreams. Then I thought about the locksmith, the forged signature, the voicemails at 3 a.m. "I miss who I thought he was," I said, "but I don't miss who he chose to be." When we pulled into our driveway, the porch light flicked on automatically. The house looked the same. Beige siding, blue shutters, roses climbing the fence. But it felt different. It felt claimed. Later, as I locked the door, I paused with the key in my hand and listened to the quiet. Lily's music upstairs, the refrigerator hum, the steady tick of the hallway clock. Safety. A roof is safety. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Because the truth, once recorded, is hard to erase. Because a house isn't his just because he says it is. Because sometimes the strongest power reversal isn't revenge. It's ownership. Restored. On paper. In court. And in the steady heartbeat of a home that finally belongs to the people who actually lived for it.